Yeah, quite a news day. Quite a news day today. This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. There's a lot of things going on today. Even a fire in the U.S. Capitol, which, if you go to my TikTok, which is Lauren Live, just at Lauren Live on TikTok, you can see the amount of fire trucks that were sitting out in front of the U.S. Capitol today. There was actually a fire in the there's like a little train trolley. For those of you who've probably been to the U.S. Capitol, it's a little train that goes from the Capitol over to the office buildings on the House side, and something caught fire. I didn't see, I could smell some smoke, but of course I didn't see any flames or anything. But it did happen right around the time the House voted. It was pretty crazy. There was another fire in Washington. It was called Donald Trump. Incredible situation where he threatens members of Congress, and many of those members of Congress had reactions online. And, you have to consider this is all happening right in the wake of all that discussion that was had only less than 2 months ago with regard to political violence after Charlie Kirk was murdered. There's this big discussion about political violence and how dangerous it was to inject violence into the bloodstream of our politics, et cetera, and so on. And you have Donald Trump threatening Democrats. And they, of course, did not let that go by lightly. And there was a ton of pressure put on Speaker Johnson, who usually is completely in sync with the president, and that ended today finally, because it just gets to a point of, frankly, ridiculousness where Johnson is just so aligned with the president to the point where it becomes completely absurd. Well, he got chased around the hallway enough today. I sort of watched part of it where he just got chased around the hallway enough today. He just could not take it anymore. But to go through a few of the news clips on this is pretty interesting, how people define what happened.
Thank you. President Trump posting some strong words on Truth Social today, suggesting Colorado Representative Jason Crow and 5 other Democratic lawmakers are acting seditiously, which the president said is, quote, punishable by death. The posts came after the lawmakers posted a video on social media telling service members not to follow illegal orders. Our Nicole Fierro joining us live with the latest on this fiery back and forth. Nicole.
Yeah, let's start with the meaning of seditious behavior. Cambridge defines it as acting in a way that's intended to persuade someone to oppose their government.
This morning, President Donald Trump threatened to have me arrested and executed.
Colorado Representative Jason Crow addressing these posts on President Donald Trump's Truth Social account this morning, responding to this recent video on social media. Crow, an Army veteran, and the lawmakers in this video titled "Don't Give Up the Ship," addressing active service members. President Trump's Truth Social posts say this is seditious behavior at the highest level. Seditious behavior, he went on to say, punishable by death. He said each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial.
Does the president want to execute members of Congress?
Think about that for a second. The White House press secretary had to be asked the question today, does the president want to execute members of Congress? That had to be asked in the White House briefing room. That was an actual question for the press secretary. She had to actually answer that. And you can't make it up, but only in the Trump White House could you have a situation where that question would even be asked.
No. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt
even she looks ridiculous in this. Usually Caroline Leavitt puts on this entire persona of, it doesn't matter how crazy Trump is, I am going to pretend that I'm just normally answering a question and that this is just all very normal. And even she has a look on her face, if you watch closely right before the question, even she has a look on her face like, whoa, this is kind of crazy that I have to answer this.
Does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressing the Congress members' video.
They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders.
And President Trump's social media reaction.
Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful. To suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do.
Well, if it violates the Constitution, it's not that. It's people, when you join the military, you're not swearing an oath to Donald Trump. You're swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution. Let's understand that. So it's very interesting that she's so outraged, but you could tell she doesn't have her whole heart into this, because it is ridiculous, the idea that anybody just has to obey any order, even if it's unlawful.
And they should be held accountable.
Representative Crow sees it differently.
It's very telling that President Trump and those around him think it's criminal simply for asking people to follow the law. This moment requires moral clarity. Every American, regardless of your background, should unite and reject his calls for political violence.
Earlier this week, Crow introduced a war powers resolution to block the Trump administration's boat strikes. A press release about the resolution refers to the strikes as unauthorized military actions and said,
yeah, and of course there was an admiral who resigned the military rather than keep up with these strikes on these so-called drug dealers, these alleged drug dealers. I mean, nobody really knows whether or not they are or not, because they're dead. And of course, the way the Trump administration is conducting that is nobody knows who these people are. And there's been a few families of fishermen that have turned up and said that their loved ones are missing. We don't really know. I'm not sure why, if they're drug dealers and they're bad actors, why they don't just capture them and present the evidence, present the drugs and say, hey, this is who we captured and this is who we've been blowing up, in the ocean. So it just kind of is amazing to me that that's not happening. But once again, there are people who've quit the military rather than to obey what they're being told to do by the likes of Pete Hegseth, which is crazy. But this communication from Trump was the news of the day. It put Republicans on defense in a big way, on a day that they really had a situation where they could have talked about the indictment of a Democratic member of Congress in Florida. They end up having to talk about, once again, Donald Trump, who is just a massive freaking distraction from everything that they're doing. Just to play the top part again of this Denver Fox 31 Denver report, which was quite a good piece of journalism here, because they get everything in 1 3-minute piece.
On Truth Social today, suggesting Colorado Representative Jason Crow and 5 other Democratic lawmakers are acting seditiously, which the president said is, quote, punishable by death.
Yeah, they didn't keep that on the screen too long, huh? Right? I was just like, wow, let's go to the next slide on that one. So yeah, let's see what another station did with this. It's sort of interesting to see the differences in how things are reported, because in these days and times, people bury a lot of what is crazy about this president and don't really want to completely shine a light on some of the insanity of this.
Let's go to the White House right now, where President Donald Trump has more harsh words for House Democrats. So get this. The president is angered by a Washington newspaper's report saying that some Democratic lawmakers released a video urging members of the military to ignore unlawful orders. In fact, look at this. Trump said on Truth Social this morning, "This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors. Lock them up." And then a short time later, the president finished with this thought: seditious behavior, punishable by death.
Yeah, that was, imagine this is all happening at 10:21 a.m. this morning, and like I said, the reaction from the Democrats is pretty freaking swift, as you might imagine. And there's sort of this tendency with Donald Trump to act like, well, he says all these outrageous things. We've got to triage which things are really terrible. We can't react to everything, because if we react to everything, then we're reacting to everything. And if we were reacting to everything that Donald Trump says, then wow, we'll be reacting all night. Well, yeah, you would be reacting, wouldn't you? Now, all of a sudden, he's threatening the lives of members of Congress. Now, that got everybody's attention. That suddenly got everybody going. And hey, Pam, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Everybody out there, please hit the like button. I hate to be so annoying about hitting the like button, but man, YouTube loves people hitting that like button. So thanks a lot. It does get to a point where you can't ignore everything that Donald Trump says. I mean, it just gets to that point where it's like, okay, you can't just be like, okay, we're just going to ignore everything. Pam, if you want to join, I'll put the link in the chat. But we've gotten to a point now with President Trump where effectively it has gotten so outrageous. I think even for the Democrats, who are used to hearing a certain level of craziness, they have even said, well, wait a minute, we've got to say something, even on this one. And there was a video, see if I can find it, of Senator Chris Murphy, the man who probably should be the majority leader in the U.S. Senate, reacting. He did a whole thing on social media. And I thought to myself, I mean, it's not that he doesn't do social media, because he does do social media. But let me just play this, the rest of this report by CBS.
Heavy words there. Let's talk about them. CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman joins us now from the White House. So, Willie, take us through what prompted these posts from the president. He is clearly triggered by something.
Yeah, that's right, Reed. Well, this video was posted on social media. Democratic lawmakers who also served in the military posting this message to troops, saying essentially that they don't have to follow an unlawful order. Then you saw Trump's response, posting the Washington Examiner article about that social media post, and calling for these Democratic officials, saying that their behavior is seditious and punishable by death. Now, we are seeing a response from House Democratic leadership, who are calling on the president to take this post down. They go into a statement. They say they condemn the president's disgusting and dangerous death threats against members of Congress, and call on the House Republican.
Right now, where President Donald Trump has more harsh words for House Democrats. So get this. The president is angered by a Washington newspaper's report saying that some Democratic lawmakers released a video urging members of the military to ignore unlawful orders. In fact, look at this. Trump said on Truth Social this morning, "This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors. Lock them up." And then a short time later, the president finished with this thought: seditious behavior, punishable by death. Heavy words there. Let's talk about them. CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman joins us now from the White House. So, Willie, take us through what prompted these posts from the president. He is clearly triggered by something.
Yeah, that's right, Reed. Well, this video was posted on social media. Democratic lawmakers who also served in the military posting this message to troops, saying essentially that they don't have to follow an unlawful order. Then you saw Trump's response, posting the Washington Examiner article about that social media post, and calling for these Democratic officials, saying that their behavior is seditious and punishable by death. Now, we are seeing a response from House Democratic leadership who are calling on the president to take this post down. They go into a statement. They say they condemn the president's disgusting and dangerous death threats against members of Congress and call on the House Republicans to forcefully do the same. They then go on to, as I mentioned, call the president to take the post down, calling it an unhinged social media post, and for him to recant his
harsh words for House Democrats. So get this. The president is angered by a Washington now where President Donald Trump has more harsh words for House Democrats. So get this. The president is angered by a Washington newspaper's report saying that some Democratic lawmakers released a video urging members of the military to ignore unlawful orders. In fact, look at this. Trump said on Truth Social this morning, "This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors. Lock them up." And then a short time later, the president finished with this thought: seditious behavior, punishable by death. Heavy words there. Let's talk about them. CBS Donald Trump has more harsh words for House Democrats. So get this. The president is angered by a Washington newspaper's report saying that some Democratic lawmakers released words for House Democrats. So get this. The president is angered by a Washington newspaper's report saying that some Democratic lawmakers released a video urging members of the military to ignore. Trump has more harsh words for House Democrats. So get this. The president is angered by a Washington newspaper's report saying that some Democratic lawmakers released a video urging members of the military to ignore unlawful orders. In fact, look at this. Trump said on Truth Social this morning, "This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors. Lock them up." And then a short time later, the president finished with this thought: seditious behavior, punishable by death. Heavy words there. Let's talk about them. CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman joins us now from the White House. So, Willie, take us through what prompted these posts from the president. He is clearly triggered by something.
Yeah, that's right, Reed. Well, this video was posted on social media. Democratic lawmakers who also served in the military posting this message to troops, saying essentially that they don't have to follow an unlawful order. Then you saw Trump's response, posting the Washington Examiner article about that social media post and calling for these Democratic officials, saying that their behavior is seditious and punishable by death. Now, we are seeing a response from House Democratic leadership who are calling on the president to take this post down. They go into a statement. They say they condemn the president's disgusting and dangerous death threats against members of Congress and call on the House Republicans to forcefully do the same. They then go on to, as I mentioned, call the president to take the post down, calling it an unhinged social media post. And
of course, all these calls for him to take the post down, et cetera, and so on, that doesn't happen, of course. The post, I believe, is still up. I'm not on Truth Social, but I certainly can see what's going on in the background. Late tonight, the White House started to walk a lot of this back because, of course, the drumbeat just got louder and louder, and it put Republicans on the defense, on very defensive posture, because of course they have to explain what Trump is saying. But let's listen to the rest of this once again.
For him to recant his violent rhetoric before someone gets killed. Now, I'll note that Speaker Johnson, the leader of the Republicans in the House, is also responding to this as well. When he was asked about the punishable by death part of the president's statement, he essentially said that the president was defining the crime of sedition. He then goes on to tell reporters in this exchange there on Capitol Hill that it was wildly inappropriate, talking about the video that was put out by the Democrats, and that the DOJ and the Pentagon are reviewing the matter. So a lot of moving parts with this developing story, and we'll of course monitor it. And I anticipate that the press secretary will be asked about this when she.
It is amazing to see Trump get condemned for anything with everything that has happened already. It is amazing to think about. Wow, he even can, push it too far every now and then, which this was a really good example of that. Even in the with the perspective of everything that has happened, everything that's gone on, it's like even he can still say something outrageous enough that it actually sort of broke news in a bad way, and they couldn't manage it today because it just got completely out of control, actually. It actually got completely out of control. Let me see what's going on with regard to this clip where we had the White House press secretary obviously being asked about this, and it really, even you could tell, didn't have her heart completely into this, which typically she sort of acts as if there's nothing to see here, you know. That's the Caroline Levitt way.
This morning, President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way.
Yeah, well, if she thinks that she's going to, it was so funny. She tried to make it seem as if what the Democrats did was more outrageous than what the president said, in the typical, look at the squirrel type strategy that they have when it comes to something like this that can't be explained.
You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos. And that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country. And if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos, and it could incite violence, and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These 3 members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin. She's a former member of the CIA.
Yeah, this is wild. So of course they turn it around and try to do this sort of PR dance of oh well, what they said was so outrageous, so what the president said is no big deal. Yeah, right. That doesn't really work, of course. But they tried it anyway because that's what they always do. They always do this sort of change the subject routine.
Mark Kelly was a captain in the U.S. Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer, and notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus, to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
But the president has
Chris,
frequently, but Caroline, can I just follow up? The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
Why aren't you talking about what these members of Congress are doing to encourage and incite violence? They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders.
Actually,
every single
can refuse an illegal order, which
but
is
they're suggesting, Nancy, that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful. And the courts have proven that. This administration has an unparalleled record at the Supreme Court because we are following the laws. We don't defy court orders. We do things by the books. And to suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do. And they should be held accountable. And that's what the president wants to see. The president expects his cabinet officials in the administration to follow the law and to demand accountability and hold people accountable for their dangerous rhetoric. And I would just add that if this were Republican members of Congress who were encouraging members of the military and members of our United States government to defy orders from the president and from the chain of command, this entire room would be up in arms. But instead, It is the other way around, and I think that's quite telling.
Oh wow. That was just unbelievable right there. I mean, on so many levels that was unbelievable. It's the members of Congress who are inciting violence because they're mad that they're being threatened by the president of the United States. Yeah, well, they actually should be mad that being threatened by the president of the United States because he's compelled to threaten them because they said something that he didn't like. His outrageous performance there, as usual, by Catherine Levitt and Carolyn Levitt, and it was just like the typical, crazy show up there where uh, it just no matter what happens, they're going to figure out a way to make an excuse for President Trump. Like it's just amazing. Even in that, I mean, of course, there never is an option with them. There never is an option to just admit that they made a mistake. Like that never ever can happen. So of course that didn't happen. Um, and Chris Murphy had a lot to say. I'll end with him. He had a ton to say about this. Um, as he should have. I mean, if you're a member of Congress listening to this, you've got to you got to react because what ends up happening invariably is when you put this type of energy out there, this type of negative energy about political violence, it something ends up happening somewhere along the line at some point. And it is just amazing to me how Donald Trump loves to play around with violence and talking about violence in a careless way. And this was what happened today was an unbelievably it was a great example of that.
Of the United States just called for Democratic members of Congress to be executed. This is not normal. We cannot allow this to feel normal. This, as far as I know, has never happened before in the history of the country. Every Democratic member of the Senate and the House, their life is in jeopardy right now, especially those that were specifically targeted by this social media post. Democratic senators and House members who were simply saying that no member of the military should act illegally or in violation of the Constitution. The President of the United States just called for members of Congress to be executed. If you are a person of influence in this country, maybe it's time to pick a fucking side. If you are a Republican in Congress, if you are a Republican governor, maybe it's time to draw a line in the sand and say that under no circumstances should the President of the United States be calling on his political opposition to be hanged. We are at a very dangerous moment right now. The president is engaged in the wholesale incitement, endorsement, and rationalization of political violence in this country. This is a very slippery slope that we are on. This is a moment for people to step up, for Republicans to step up, for business leaders to step up. Anybody who has a voice or a soapbox in this country needs to draw a line in the sand and say that it is not acceptable for the President of the United States to call on the murder of his political opposition.
Yeah, and one group you can count on not to step up, it's business leaders, right? Did anyone hear did anyone hear anything from business leaders today? I really tend to doubt that one. But that is Chris Murphy was probably the first and most vivid member of Congress come out really quickly and make a statement on this entire situation today, which was just completely wild, just absolutely wild. But again, I'm actually surprised in a lot of ways that there was something that finally happened that caught everybody's attention that Donald Trump has said that kind of stopped the music, because he has lowered the bar so much that I figured, well, even when I saw that, I was like, that's going to just go by like everything else. The news cycles are so fast and so quick that nobody reacts to anything anymore. Well, that was definitely an exception today. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Again, with the Charlie Kirk thing that happened, all of that, it's amazing to think about. It really is amazing to think about the fact that Charlie Kirk just happened. There was a whole big statement with regard to political violence and the danger of it and this and that. And of course, the Republicans used that moment to try to lionize Charlie Kirk and, oh, we got to stop talking about political violence. And all those same Republicans went dead silent today. Just have said absolutely nothing about anything. And I guess no, I won't end with Hakeem Jeffries because that's going to be music and slides from USA Today. But that's just, an amazing thing today because typically, like I said, the president says things and he gets away with them. At any rate, that's pretty much it. To just go through those reels of something that happened today that was, there were so many things that happened this week right before Thanksgiving. When Congress is finishing up right before the holiday, they tend to cram so many things in. So it creates all of this news. And like I said, there was a fire at the U.S. Capitol, which is crazy to say that, but there was a fire at the U.S. Capitol. And when they're cramming everything in, it creates news. But as usual, Donald Trump always does something. He always does something to take the attention off of everybody else. And, I think that he just likes to play with this idea that, hey, I can do something to get everybody's attention. But like I said, they're starting to dial it back at the White House. They're starting to walk back what was said, which for them is extremely, extremely rare. Oh, he didn't really say that. Oh, he didn't really. The way that they quote dial it back at the White House is they'll start denying that he said what he said. That's really what they're doing. Like I said, you'll never get anything close to anything, an apology or something like that would never happen. But at any rate, that's pretty much it. It is 9:30, and there's not a whole lot to say about that other than to say it was amazing that there was actual reaction to it. I'll be back maybe tomorrow night. I think that I'll be probably in Southern Virginia. I don't know that yet. As I said, Congress has one more day in session before they go out for the Thanksgiving holiday. There's a lot going on, to say the least, and who knows? Who knows what happens after they get back? The healthcare insurance problem with regard to subsidy has not been fixed. It is open season; people can change their healthcare plans. The question is, can they pay for them? And of course, the Republicans are starting to talk about having some sort of a plan for that in terms of handing out checks to, in some way assist people to pay their healthcare coverage. Unlikely to work and unlikely to happen. Frankly, the Republicans have never had a health care plan this entire time, ever since the passage of the Affordable Care Act in 2010. It's unlikely that they're suddenly going to wake up in the morning and have one now. But at any rate, I will be back probably tomorrow night. We'll see how it goes. I'll put up a notice on my YouTube page. In the meantime, I'll be on TikTok and starting to get better with Instagram. I'm not a big Instagram fan, but a lot of people are on it. It is a fun app. It was a funner app before a certain person bought it. At any rate, I'm Lauren Burke. I'll be back. I will be back very soon. There's a lot, as usual, going on, but of course there'll be a little break for Thanksgiving. Thank goodness. But I'll be back soon.